All right, it's 10:40 here on the East Coast. Welcome to Twitch Line, everyone. I am your host, Toto, joined as always with my best friend, Mr. Acorn. How are you doing tonight?
Doing all right. A little bit out of sorts here. Just watched the first two episodes of Chernobyl, and my lord, uh,
Yes.
yeah, that's heavy, man.
Oh, yeah.
And we're lucky. We're lucky. We're still here. Jesus.
Well, considering it was a real disaster, it was something that both of us lived through but didn't understand because it happened in '86, if I remember right, if I remember my history right. It could have been an unmitigated disaster, actually, if not for some heroism with regards to some of the people that were involved in the disaster. Which I think you're going. With the first two episodes, I don't know if they go through the whole meltdown or anything like that, but there was a whole bunch of stuff associated to making sure that not to that the efforts were didn't go in vain to a lot of people, and it's pretty crazy. So because
Yeah, you
his
see a mix of heroism and then uh, state enforced heroism. So
yes, yes,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, like for anybody interested in heroism, I think there was a great documentary that was done regarding the meltdown at Fukushima, the nuclear reactor over at in Japan when it got hit by the tsunami waves. I think back in 2012 or 2013 or something like that. And the stories that came out about the people that sacrificed themselves to save um, the reactor from going completely meltdown, which is crazy. So there's a couple documentaries associated with that. You should check those out because those are insane too. Because the stories that people tell and who volunteered for what and why, just amazing. But in the meantime, welcome to Twitch Line, your home for relationship advice here on Twitch. We're going to be here talking about relationship advice here that we are picking up here from Reddit today. It is your Wednesday, as always. Please, if you're willing to contact us, if you want to have us answer some questions, or you have some articles or things you want us to discuss here on Twitchline, you can email us here at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can also tweet us on Twitter at Twitchline. Please, also, if you are not a Twitch member, we are streaming live on YouTube. You can join us here on YouTube. You search Twitch Line on YouTube. You'll see us streaming live. Subscribe to our channel there on YouTube. Or if you want to take us on the go, uh, you can follow us on SoundCloud, and you just have to just do the search Twitch Line on SoundCloud, and you'll pull up our channel. We try to upload as many things as we can onto there. And live shows usually go up about 1 to 2 days after we go live here on Twitch and YouTube. So let us go to the main screen here. Start getting a late start to Twitch line tonight. Usually we start earlier on around 10:30 or so. I think we're getting a little bit of a later start, but that's okay. Hopefully we can catch some West Coast viewers tonight, Acorn.
yeah, man.
Hmm.
Get the whole country and outside the country too. If you're listening, come
Yeah.
on over.
Yep. It is actually 10 a.m. in Asia. So if you discover us here in Asia, hello.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. So, in the meantime, let us go ahead and go to our first topic. And it is an interesting topic. At least I think so. It is dating while still living at home with your parents. Now, there are a lot of younger viewers here on Twitch that are interested in this topic because they're teenagers and they have nowhere else to go. But even as an older adult, there are a lot of people who are in college that live at home or have graduated and come back home because the way the economy works, affording a home, no matter where you are, or an apartment by yourself can be very, very difficult. And you were forced to make some choices with regards to your living conditions. And one of them might be coming back and living at home, but then there are issues with that because theoretically you're an adult, but it's one of those things where if you're trying to date a man or if you're trying to date as a man or if you're trying to date as a woman, there are various amounts of difficulties that can be involved. So, Timmy, why don't you take it away here and read what is going on in this particular topic here that we have from Reddit?
Sure thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you point out that this is an issue for teens dating people in their 20s in college and out of college. This actually is pulled from the Reddit dating over 30.
Mm.
So you can see that this affects a lot of people, and they probably have different takes on the whole thing depending on the age. But just coming straight at it, I'll read from the page here.
All right.
It's user too much coffee XX. Dating while still living at home with your parents. Guys in your 30s that are still living at home with your parents, how do you think that affects your dating life? Do you behave differently than you would if you lived on your own? Do you sleep over at the girl's house? Do you bring the girl over to your parents' place? Do you tell your parents when you're going on a date? Does living with your parents affect your dating life? So this guy's just coming at us with some questions.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Um, so we'll just kind of go down the line here. Um, how does it affect your dating life? That's a pretty significantly, I'm sure. Um, I don't know if there's like a magical age that it goes from acceptable to unacceptable to be living with your parents. I mean, if you're a teenager, of course, that's what's expected, and you always find ways to work around it. Usually, you know, a park, a car, basically any place with a flat surface. Um, but once you get into college, you usually have a little more freedom there, and the expectations that you're likely to get into romantic relationships are more acceptable than in high school. So it's still probably okay then. People don't expect you to have your own place. Moving out of college into, low to mid 20s, most people don't expect as soon as you walk out of school with your diploma that you can suddenly afford to buy a house, especially with the cost of school these days. So, in that case, if you went back from college to live with your parents while you're figuring it out, setting yourself up for work, it still might be acceptable. But as you creep towards the 30s, late 20s and close to 30, it becomes more and more unacceptable for men and women to date while you're living at home. And it's not, in another time, people could afford to come out of school and rent an apartment, and whatever their first job was generally enough to cover that stuff. These days, you're coming out of school. A lot of people have to go into an internship from that point, and they're still making barely enough to get by. Or you've got student loans to pay, and you've got, your taxes, your car, and everything else. So you're living in a little tiny box in an apartment, and sometimes it's better just to go back home. So you can imagine these people are doing this to sort of get by. I'm not sure that many of them are saying, "Oh man, I can't wait to get back home and live with my parents well into my 30s." Um, but and there are mitigating situations that make it more acceptable. For example, if your parents are sick, I hope that's not the case, but if your parents are sick and you're taking care of them, you have a role in the caring for your parents. That's generally acceptable. It may not be optimal for your dating partner, but they still should accept it.
Yep.
It also might be a cultural thing, right? If you're from a culture that families stay together until the child is married off, and that's basically when they leave the home to go into another home, that could be acceptable. Um, and then also, if there's been some kind of like traumatic life experience, your place burned down, you had a severe injury, and you need someone to take care of you in a way, uh, lost all your money, like these kind of things. At least there can be a conversation about it, and people might be more accepting of that. Would you put that up on your dating profile? Probably not. And would you put up on your dating profile that you live at home with your parents? That's a tricky one. So Z, do you think that this is a different thing for men and women? Do you think that being a man or being a woman changes the acceptability of this?
Yes, absolutely, it does. And a lot of it is cultural stigma. There is, no matter how far you go back, and how even we're trying to be a progressive society, there is still this assumption, I think, that the man should be in charge of his own destiny. He's not in any way shackled to anybody else, and in this particular case, living arrangements. Um, it makes you 100% more attractive to a woman knowing that he has his own place, he's able to take care of himself, he's able to go and be a potential quote, you know, you know, man in charge in a way. It's just one of those things. I think the assumption that most of society, this is mostly American society too, the assumption
Sure.
that in American society that if a man is living at home, that he is in some way immature, that he's not fully grown up, that he's not in any way ready to go out into the world, and that makes him very much less attractive. Now, with regards to women, I think it's a little bit more accepting. Most people will assume that there were automatically mitigating circumstances, where in a man, they don't assume that at all most of the time. It is one of those things in which the comments that you get is more side eye than anything else. Then when you explain that, oh, this happened, then they become a little bit more accepting about it. But you have to still explain yourself if you're a man. As a woman, not as much. Not that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of women actually go through the situation where, um, especially in Asian culture, where an Asian woman is not living by herself, and it's wholly acceptable. The parents are there; they understand what's going on. They're almost being protective of that particular woman, and it is completely fine. It's it's in some way a bit normal. I think there are other people also, female living at home like right out of college, even in their mid 20s, even into their early 30s to a point where it's even more accepting and understandable where something like that happens, and men are more willing to be accepting of it. So it's just one of those things in which I think in the end guys have to sort of live and understand that that is something that is going to be looked down upon. Now, there can be mitigating circumstances, like you said. There are also racial differences, also. In most Asian
Well,
cultures, for example,
cultural, right?
cultural,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think it's almost to a point it's cultural here in the United States because other places dealing with uh, potential dating partners and other things like that, you meet families way early on. I mean, a lot of the times here in American dating culture, you don't actually get to meet parents until, possibly, if they
Until
don't
it's
live in the same
serious. Yeah.
town. Yeah, exactly. Then you get to meet the family. Oh, no, no, no. It doesn't happen that way. Uh, in other dating cultures, you actually meet the family early on, and all the dating culture in that particular case, the family has a lot of say on whether or not he or she is acceptable to be a suitable, you know, partner going forward.
And what's
Yeah.
interesting about that is also that in those cultures, if you were a child that moved away from your family before you were married, it might say something bad about you,
hmm
about like how close you are to your family if you've gone away from them rather than staying with them until it was time to get married.
No,
It might actually be a mark against you.
yeah, it's absolutely right. It's one of those things in which a lot of families like to stay close, and even moving away is big. But if you're moving away in the same town or in the same region, it's completely fine. There's a acceptable level of moving away. Now, if said child is moving away and getting a very very good job, that is also acceptable. But
Sure.
be one of those, be expecting of families visiting on a regular basis. So this is the things that you sort of have to deal with as a male growing up here in the United States. The thing about it is you just sort of have to navigate those waters, right? The Finding a potential partner is difficult as it is right now, but trying to explain why you're living in the current living situation that you're in is difficult. But it's also one of those things in which if you find someone that is willing to give you a chance and sort of take into consideration what is going on, you might have somebody that's willing to sort of work with you and understand that, like, not everybody is going to be able to be the perfect guy right out, or guy or girl right out of the box when it comes to living at home with your parents. there was a staggering statistic that came out, I think it was a couple months ago, that the average college student coming home from college is burdened somewhere between $100 and $250,000 worth of debt. That is insane, and you have to pay that debt off eventually. So how are you expected to live on your own when you start with that much of a negative is beyond me. You and I come from a little bit of a different generation where college wasn't necessarily as expensive as it was now. Uh, it was expensive, but it was manageable. Current college
Ah, man,
students, yeah,
I got my master's degree, so I got
yeah.
part of it.
Oh yeah,
Telling
did
you, you wanna see my bills?
well, you're different. I only got my bachelor's degree, but going for the higher education, there were we have a friend that actually had to pay for his secondary education as a GTA, and you did too, I think, in Hawaii, right? Like you
Yep.
were also a GTA to cover that, but it's expensive, so it's not like you can get an immediate start on your life if you're burdened with that much debt. It's almost impossible, and to a point
Right.
I think even American society is realizing it now because there are so many kids going home because they can't go out there and get a proper start. It's almost as if like
Right.
the amount of debt is stunting people and it's leading to situations like this.
Right. But the stigma is still there.
Yeah.
It doesn't account for these changes, these economic changes. So, 50 years ago, when we had a different, morality, the common morality was different, and maybe sex before marriage was less. I mean, maybe not 50, maybe more than 50 years ago, but quite a while ago. Um, you could see these kind of thoughts, like someone who was with their parents, you wouldn't really think too much of it.
Hmm.
Then we moved into a more, I guess, a better time. Money was coming easier. People were um, able to afford their housing, push out. But at where we are right now, it's it's going to actually start shifting back soon enough. People will start to say, you know what, we're all stuck at home with our parents because that's the only thing we can afford. So we're just going to make it work.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet, but I think we will. And I think, as you were saying, it's easier for women to be at home with their parents. It's more acceptable. Like if you're on Tinder and you're swiping, you talking to someone, and a woman says that she's at home with her parents, that's probably more acceptable to men than it is women in the other direction saying this man's at home with his parents.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's just societal. The equality is not where it needs to be, but such is life. But if we push forward a little bit, if that's okay.
No, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Um, the next question has, do you behave differently than you would if you lived on your own? And I think that's pretty obvious. You'd have to behave differently. Uh, it's hard to say how much autonomy you have, but I know that the parent-child dynamic is sometimes extended into adulthood because you live under the same roof.
Hmm.
If you're pulling food out of the fridge, if you're contributing and you have your own, I don't know, you have your own door coming in and out, and you're really kind of autonomous in that home. That's one thing. But in most cases, you're still having dinners with the family. You're still having to do chores, and you're still like part of that. And so part of that relationship that you had with them as a child carries on, even if you don't want it to, into adulthood. And then also, depending on how your parents might be very controlling people, and that might influence. You know, if they're telling you you can't come home so late and things like that, that can really cramp your style. Or you
No,
can't have
you're
someone
absolutely
stay
right.
over the night.
And it's a power dynamic. You have to understand that this is one of those things in which you're an older adult coming back home. It is theoretically the home you grew up with, but it is also the same home that you have no say as to the rules of that home. You might be an adult, but it is not the home that you paid for. Unless you're able to change the dynamic, like you mentioned, contributing to household expenses, things like that. The thing about it is yes, your behavior absolutely will have to change because you have to be mindful of the people that live in the home. You are a tenant in that home, essentially, in a way, where the landlords are your parents. There's no other way of describing it, but that is what the truth is about it. So people will argue as well. Well, I'm an adult. I can go out and stay out as long as I want, and do all of the things that I want to do. I'm grown up. I should be able to do so. Absolutely. The problem is that society will say that you are not grown up because you are living at home. There is an association with your living condition and your state of adulthood, and it is very prominent here in the United States, whereas in other countries, there's not that much of a tie with regards to the way that you live and whether or not you'd be considered an adult. Here in the United States, there are certain conditions that have to be met. I think this is how I perceive it, but I think a lot of people will agree with me. Is that you have a place of your own, you have a steady job, you own your own car. A lot of these seem very, very superficial when you really think about it because it's about things. But it is a way how people perceive your maturity. It's like, do you have a steady job? Yes. Oh, that means he's will be able to hold down a job, and it's not like a McDonald's job or anything like that. Does he have his own car? Yes. He can afford and buy his own car and maintain it. That's fantastic. Does he have his own place? It's like, well, theoretically, no. It's like, well, then there must be something wrong. It's like, no, that there isn't. It could be that living in the area where rent is ridiculously expensive, it is just not an expense that he can afford without significantly, like, basically not being able to live. So, but it is just one of those tenets that people believe that it would make you an acceptable quote adult. So in a way, it's just one of those things. There's nothing you can sort of do about it. But you have to then, switching back, if you're living in your parents' home, you have to follow their rules. And that means if they say that they don't want people coming in and out of the house after 11 o'clock or something like that, then you have to abide by those rules. If they don't want to see or you bring girls home because they feel uncomfortable with you having a sexual life under their roof, that is also something that you will have to abide by. It is just unfortunately not your choice in this particular case because they will use it almost as a power play in order for you to modify your behavior because they have the ability to shelter themselves, whereas you do not. And the only way to get around that is if you were to somehow take over the day-to-day expenses of the home to the point where theoretically you could be living by yourself, but you instead choose to do so at home because you're now paying the mortgage, you're paying the electricity bill, you're doing everything to maintain the house. Well, okay then, they can't use the argument that it's my house, my rules. It's like, well, I'm paying for the house, so
Right, but
therefore
if
that, yeah.
you can do all that, then you probably could have moved out and had your own place. So
That's exactly
that's
right.
that's
But
a different
that's when
choice. So
mitigating circumstances come in.
yeah,
Sick parents, everything like that. So
sure,
then that happens
sure.
in that situation. So therefore, that is one of those things. And you're right. If you're able to do all of that, then you could have your own place. But what if in mitigating circumstances say that you're forced to do that and your own place, but then the arguments then become is like, well, why are you coming in so late? Um, well, you know what? Why are you bringing this up? This is like I am theoretically rescuing my parents out of a situation that is not in any way beneficial to them. Why are you arguing with me and my situation? So therefore, then that gets into a different conversation. But you see
People
what
just
I'm?
need to be understanding that,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's someone in a situation like this, they have to be empathetic and understanding. Or they don't have to be. If they don't want to do that, then they don't date them. But you're going to see a lot of frustration as this becomes more and more common.
Sure.
And you're going to see people uh, making selections that they wouldn't normally make. For example, this person might be perfect for you in every other way, but because of this living situation, you might say, no, this is not for me. So, it's just something to keep in mind and consider. This guy's talking about, oh, do you sleep over at the girl's house? Does she sleep at yours? Again, that's just going to be person to person. It's going to be dependent on the situation. Do you tell your parents when you're going on a date? Again, this is your relationship with your parents. So a lot of these are very specific, and they're questions you probably already know the answer to
Yeah.
yourself in your particular situation. Um, I will say that someone who has this, like I live with my parents, on their dating profile, it's kind of a kiss of death. It is, or not necessarily a kiss of death, but it is going to push what otherwise might have been more attention away from you, because a lot of people just that wasn't on their little wish list, and most people going around and swiping on these sites have an idea of exactly what they're looking for, and when people don't meet it, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks, because there's so many out there and they're just disposable. And so this is one of those, someone will call it a red flag regardless of what your circumstances are. There is, however, a bright side, right? You can seek out other people in the same situation. If someone else is living with their parents and you're living with yours, that's equal grounds. So you don't have to worry about an imbalance there. You can say, we both have this situation. It's going to be difficult for both of us, but maybe, if we like each other and we date and things work out well, then maybe the solution is combine our resources and get a place together.
Yep.
That's you can't do that in the beginning, but like, you know, it could be in the back of your head. And you can also look for other people who are already set up in their own and wouldn't mind someone kind of stepping in, fitting into their world.
Hmm.
So there are people out there that have the house, the car, they have it all set up. They've been living the bachelor life or the bachelorette life, and maybe for whatever reason they haven't connected to someone or they've gotten out of a relationship, but they've still got themselves set up. They may not be looking at you and saying, "Oh, why do you live with your parents?" They might say, "You know what? I'm good here, and if you want to come over and stay with me all the time, I'm comfortable in my own place. So why not come? Just
Hmm.
step in and enjoy." I've seen that a few times. So all in all, direct advice to this guy is just recognize that you're not the only one, and that it's tough, but it's probably a temporary thing. I mean, I don't know about his particular situation, but generally it's temporary. At some point, people tend to leave the home and go get themselves up. So just work extra hard towards that,
Yep.
and don't don't get beaten down by people who don't accept your situation, because you can't change your situation right now. So why are you going to let someone kick you around for it?
Yeah.
Um, Before we move on to the next topic, though, I just thought it might be interesting to like think about what are some of the other kisses of death that you see on dating profiles. Um, to bring a little levity to this, because that's could be kind of a heavy subject. Um, and so I wrote down a couple here, and you can tell me what you think or respond or throw in a couple if you want.
Yeah. All right.
Um, the first one was posting photos of yourself surrounded by people that are more attractive than you. Is that a kiss of death? I mean, it doesn't do well. You don't. It doesn't do well for you, especially if you have a number of photos and basically everyone is more attractive than you. That's probably not too helpful. Um, People who put down an endless list of personality traits, like I'm kind, humble, intelligent, giving. That like da, 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 da. At some point, it doesn't seem. It seems put on it. It just seems like you like just made a list of all positive things. People don't generally put up their negative things. So is it really believable? Another one is a long list of don'ts for possible partners, like don't be like this, don't be like this, don't be crazy, don't be a loser, or a demand list, like you will be earning this salary, you will be above this height. There are some pretty demanding people out there. Another one is whining about online dating. If it's in your profile that you hate online dating, nobody wants to go out with that. So that's probably going to do you wrong. This one, I saw this one actually on a site. It
Hmm.
said if you put that you love video games in your profile, it actually will hurt you. What do you think about that?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like we're streaming onto Twitch, which is a bastion for video gamers, for example. I think that's slowly changing. Honestly, I think based on the statistics that you see, where over 70% of people play games of some sort or another, be it on their phones or on PCs or on Xboxes or PS3s. Uh, I think in any ways, it's like it, it's one of those things in which people, if they put that down, you know that it's a big part of their life, and it could be just not something somebody wants to deal with, which is why it could be theoretically a kiss of death. But it can also be a boon because a lot of people who online date are also very, tech related. They know about games. Some of them might really like games. I think it's a 50-50 thing, depending on what you're looking
Right.
for in a partner. Because if your profile says I love LARPing and I love video games, you're going to find a specific person, type of person, and I guarantee that that person will, if they like one, they'll like both. So
Well,
it's
if it says I love LARPing, either people won't know what that is and it won't affect you,
yeah,
or if
yeah,
they do know what that
it
is,
is.
you may have a better chance because they
Yeah,
know what that is.
exactly. It's exactly
But
right. Because what'll
I think
happen is the people who know will know, and they will be in a category that means that they're going to be somebody that you will want to date if that is one of the hobbies that you like. For those who
I think
don't know, LARPing is live action role playing, which is a whole nother conversation altogether.
yes. So I think that it probably is dependent on age. I think younger folk who are caught up in all the gaming culture and stuff,
Mhm.
that it won't necessarily hurt them, may even help them, who knows? Um, but that the older generation who have a kind of a negative idea about video games probably will not like that too much. And especially anyone who's ever been burned, right? If
Yeah,
you had a relationship where the other person was choosing games over you, then yeah, you're not going to like that. That's going to trigger you. So avoid it. The last two were just having like grammar mistakes in your profile. It means you're sloppy, or you don't know that you made those mistakes. And sorry. And then the last one is too long, didn't read. Right? If your profile is just like a small novelette, then they're not going to try to read through that.
yeah. Nobody
And
cares. Nobody cares.
yeah, and it means you're thinking way too much about yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, let's hop along here to our next topic, which is kind of a rant. I think
I
this
think it
guy.
absolutely is a rant. At first, I didn't understand it because it's like stop looking and focus on myself. I can tell you that that advice. I can tell you that that advice is simply untrue. It's I don't know. It seemed weird to me. So let me read it to you, and I want to see what your initial opinion is. It is from a poster by the name of June Keys, and it is just one of those things in which I don't know. I'm sort of I'm on the fence about this topic. So let's read through it with regards to this, and then we'll discuss it a little bit because it is a bit of a rant. So the title is As a guy who has tried my absolute hardest to stop looking and focus on myself, I can tell you that the advice is simply untrue. By June Keys. I made a post here a while ago asking if I should just give up and stop wanting a relationship. Well, I tried it. I've since focused on myself, my interests, my hobbies, and my job. I got 70 plus hours in my last pay period because I sunk myself into work so much, but it's not like I've gone out either. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I spend time with friends regularly. Sometimes I just go out to the mall or some other public venue just to hang out by myself. I installed and deleted all my OLD profiles, online dating. I've wanted to join a meetup group or something in but my area is pretty lame for that sort of thing, and the closest stuff I can find is 25 plus miles away. I'm still on summer break from college, so there's not much going on there. So far, nothing has changed. Things have gotten worse from my mental state, in fact. I haven't met anyone new. I haven't felt genuine joy for a long time, which is something I may need to see a therapist about. No one has sauntered into my life because I stopped looking. It's rare and rarer. I'm even attracted to anyone nowadays. I recently had a mental breakdown in the shower, sobbing and ugly crying, and even after I didn't feel so much better. I'm 20 years old, male, and I know that it's young, but I constantly have this sinking feeling in my gut that I'm going to die alone and completely unwanted. That nothing I do is good enough, nor will ever be, and that some people, myself included, just aren't meant to be for romantic love. I don't understand how people can say, stop looking, it will happen. Because it doesn't. Because there have been periods in my life where I was looking really, really hard, and periods I wasn't at all, and nothing changes for me. I'm I am very conflicted about this, and the reason I am is because I can't really tell if this person is just sad. Sad, I mean, sad in which is very, very unhappy in the current living situation that June Keys is living, or is actually physically depressed and needs a therapist to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is one of those cases I think that he took some advice that normally is good advice, which is looking introspectively and maybe finding a truth about yourself that can help you go forward. But it's almost as if it's fed into his sadness slash depression because some of the things that he's tried out are just not feasible. Uh, Example being trying to find those meetup groups that don't exist where he lives. The part I'm conflicted about is the fact that um, he is in between college sessions. So at his 20 years old, if he's in a summer break, he's probably going into his junior or possibly senior year in college, which is also going to be a very stressful time in university. But he's just going to have so many choices when it comes to things that he can do at college because as we know, you put yourself into an environment where there are so many women involved, you don't need to even throw a rock. People just show up. You can join social groups at university and do whatever it is that you want to do. And I think that there's hope on the horizon, but he's getting impatient about it, and he's getting a bit sad and a bit lonely at his situation, and I don't know whether it's just him just devolving into sadness or if he's actually really depressed.
Yeah. Well, we are not ones to say that. We are
Hmm.
not clinically trained, nor do we hold any licensure in
Hmm.
that area. So we cannot say that and give advice directly on that. Um, but what I would say is if you think you need to see a therapist, that's a great idea.
Hmm.
Go for it. So my original takeaway from what he described as his problem, there's a lot of positives to what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to the gym a lot. He's basically gotten rid of online dating apps and stuff like that. Like most people think that that's exactly what you need, and then it makes dating that much easier. But for certain people, the way that they connect to others and the way that they think through things, online dating is the worst thing they could do, setting themselves up to be rejected in their minds over and over and over again by all the people that they swiped and didn't swipe back, or the people that didn't respond to their messages. That can weigh on people in the same way that not having enough followers on Instagram somehow makes you feel lesser. This guy probably is feeling like online dating was just brutalizing him and his self confidence. So
Hmm.
that's good on him. He's working hard. He said he put 70 hours in his work in his last pay period. So home he's going to have some money. So when it's time to take out a lady, he'll be able to afford it. So great. But all that being said, uh, he seems like he was looking for kind of a magic spell of a response. Like if I do these things that everyone online is telling me to do, focus on myself, work hard, go to the gym, da, 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 da. If I do these things, bam, the girls are going to come in flying and I'm just going to get one. It's going to be that easy. And that's just not the case. So he's taking actions that are associated with working on yourself, but I'm not sure that his head is in the right place and that he's taking the actions that will make him connect with people.
Mm.
Right? So the actions he's
Mm.
taking, going to the gym, that works on your body, that might increase your self confidence. That does not mean that you talk to a girl or that a girl is going to say, "Hey, there's a nice body. I'm going to go step up and talk to him." Right? There's no guarantee in that. So he still has to take the initiative to make these connections. And, as it is now, he feels like he's stagnant or even losing ground. He talks about how he hasn't felt joy in a long time. Uh, and, maybe he does need to see a therapist, but maybe part of that therapy could involve him coming up with ways that he can actively make connections with other people instead of thinking that just by doing better for himself that those connections will appear. I mean, even his comment about no one has sauntered into my life, it's very indicating. It's telling us now that he's done the thing, he expects the results to arrive for him. So he just has to have a kind of adjustment in his way of thinking about this.
I
He's
think
20 years. Yeah, go ahead.
I think he's misinterpreted the advice to a point, in a way that
Right.
when somebody told me when I was going through a breakup that, you should do other things and eventually everything will come around. The whole idea for doing that, especially the job, the gym, deleting your online profiles, is to not think about putting yourself in a situation where you need to constantly try to find a relationship or deal with a relationship. The whole idea is that you do these other things to keep your mind busy, and while doing these other things, that your natural reactions to situations will come out, and that might a situation where something happens where you're working a lot, but all of a sudden you realize that a coworker, a female coworker or a male coworker, depending on who you want to date, like comes up and has just been really impressed and asks you out to get a drink because you guys have been working so hard, and you're not thinking that it's in any way romantic or anything like that. You just be yourself. Going to the gym, you put in the work. You like you said, you're putting in the work. Somebody notices, wants to take over a machine that you're doing. Very impressed with your workout, and it's a conversation that you have that in any way doesn't have any connotations of hitting on the other person, but you are again yourself, and who knows, something could happen. And I think what he's believed, that by doing all of this, um, and you're right with the word sauntering in, and nobody's sauntered into my life. It's like all of a sudden, yeah, he's going to come into it, and yeah, just got the wrong feeling on how it is, and it's just made his mentality even worse because he's just misinterpreted what has been going on.
Right. But this is the fallacy of. Sorry. This is the flaw of Reddit, and
Mm,
these dating Reddits where people ask, they put down paragraphs of their life situation, and people give a one sentence response or two or three sentences, usually critical, usually dismissive, usually telling them, oh, break up with a person. Oh, just go to the gym. Oh, like simple, straightforward things that may have worked for them or not, but are just the easy way to feel like that they've given their 2 cents and that they've been heard and that they've been the helper. It doesn't necessarily help people. And so it is it is the reason that you and I are talking right now. You and I saw these things and said, that's not real advice. That's not helpful for people. There's no nuance, there's no deeper investigation, there's no talking around the subject so that people can get a sense of why someone might give that advice. So instead of him going on here and just taking someone's random advice they threw out there, it's just a couple lines, and then saying, "Hey, wait, I did the thing. Where's my result?"
yeah.
He might look for a kind of a deeper thought process and try to understand it as a whole. And I think that's why he came back, and I think that's why he posted this because he sees that it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
He's 20 years old. If he's going to die alone, it's going to happen a long, long, long time from now, right? And long enough even to realize that what he's imagining now is more based on depressive thoughts. I'm using this loosely, depressive, but just sad feelings than reality.
Yeah.
Um, he has a lot of negative self-critical thoughts in his head, and I actually looked back because I used this username and went to the previous post that he's referring to from about 5 months ago, and that seems like where he started this idea that I'm going to make these changes and I'm going to get the results. And 5 years, or sorry, 5 months at 20 years old is a lot of time for a young
Mm-hmm.
person, young people time, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a lot of time when it comes to finding genuine connection and real love. So that's it. That's part of youth. You want everything fast, hard now, and it's hard when it doesn't come that way, and it's part of maturing. So it's just something he's going to go through.
Yep.
Do you have any, like, if you had to give this guy some advice right now, like what he could do to shake some of the negative feelings he's having, or how he might improve the chances that he can connect to someone else, like to take what he's already done and take the next step, what would you say to this guy if he was right in front of you?
Well, if he you were right about if he feels like he needs to take the next step is talking to a therapist, then he needs to get all his emotions out to somebody who can professionally process what he's going through and maybe give him an opinion that can help him in a way in that particular case. I believe what he has done in 5 months by focusing a lot on his work, going to the gym, trying to figure out alternative methods of keeping himself busy is great in a way, but I think what is going on is his age and his brain are basically overtaking him, and he needs to stop worrying about being 20 and alone. There are ridiculous amounts of people in his situation. Um, in a way, he's in a lot better off than a lot of other 20-year-olds because he's got a job and a gym membership. Um,
And he's
uh,
going to college.
and he's going to college. These are positive he needs to look at because he's not like examining the positives in his life. Like when he's sitting there crying in his shower about his relationship issues, he's not focusing on things that are actually happening that are positive in his life. So I would want him to refocus on the good things that are happening to him right now, and it'll be hard because these thoughts of being alone are overwhelming his sort of psyche at the moment. But sometimes in order to exit that mental storm that you're in, you need to figure out where all the good things are, and then just keep reinforcing yourself as to what they are. Apparently, his work has been allowing him to work 30 plus hours of overtime, which is ridiculous. So that's great. Um, so that's absolutely fantastic. He's a healthy person going to the gym. That's also fantastic. You know, he lives maybe in a rural area, then maybe pick up a rural hobby. You can't find a meetup group that maybe interests you in the way that you want it to, but there are other people that live in where you are. Maybe you haven't examined activities in your rural area that you may want to pick up. And if that any doesn't work, you're off back to college in a month or two,
Yeah,
or maybe less than a
honestly.
month, and you're changing your living situation where you can absolutely do the things that you wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here real quick. This this guy doesn't actually want. I mean, at the beginning of the summer, I'm sure he wanted to date and connect and hook up or whatever. But at this point, when he's about to go back to school, he doesn't want to find someone that he wants to date back home because then he's gonna be back at school.
Hmm.
So you're actually okay. You'd rather be connected at school where you can have a lot more free time and you know connect there. So I'd say go into the next semester and get involved, make those connections, join the groups, find people that are just doing their thing and have fun doing it with them. And you'll be surprised, but things just happen. And you don't want to hear it because it hasn't happened yet, but it does happen.
Hmm.
So just keep on, man. Don't let it bring you down because the sad thoughts and sad feelings and the negative self perception that can be read, and you don't want to lose options because someone thinks that you're a wet blanket or something.
Well, wallowing in your misery makes it worse from experience that I know this. It's like you have to physically, mentally change yourself from thinking those things. If you're having issues doing that, that's where a therapist comes in. But by focusing on negative thoughts, they perpetuate more negative thoughts, and you don't want to be there. So you have to start thinking positive. And then hopefully that will break this cycle of being able to being able to not find somebody in a way by using your this positive outlook, positive mentality, staying non hung up on the situation, and then going forward from there. And yeah, it eventually
That's
will
yeah.
happen for him. He's
Right.
20. He's
Happy or
so young.
sad,
Yeah.
if you were the most perfect man on this planet and you were just sitting in your dorm room being perfect, that doesn't get you a girlfriend. You
Nope.
have to put yourself out there. You have to be talking to people, make connections, and that's where it is. So, do it.
Correct.
We'll see you on the other side of that. Uh,
Do
let's move on to the let's move on to
it.
the third subject tonight. It's from r/dating, and it's the user Buzz this year.
Buzz this year,
Yeah,
not Buzz Lightyear or last
no,
year.
no, Buzz this year. Uh, and Buzz this year writes, the topic is mixed race relationship advice. What is the easiest and hardest thing? Uh, and he writes, actually asking for a friend who isn't confident enough to ask on Reddit. Sure thing, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, this is
Mhm.
you. Own it.
Mhm.
Um, he's a 28-year-old male dating a 20-year-old female. He's Asian ethnicity and she is white. He wants to ask if anyone has advice for mixed race dating and relationships. What's been the easiest thing and what's been the hardest thing? Okay, well, it's a very general question, so it might actually be less helpful to the OP because we can't really give specific advice on this one, but we can go over some of the positives and some of the negatives associated with interracial dating.
Oh yeah.
Um, but before we do that, I think we should consider some of the things that can influence your success in interracial dating. And even before we do that, we should probably consider and discuss what interracial dating really means or constitutes. So I'll say interracial dating can include a number of influential factors like socioeconomic status, cultural differences, what age you start dating, what a man or woman in their various cultures are supposed to do or expected to do, what to expect regarding intimacy, public displays of affection, marriage, all those things. That's all sort of it's an element of culture, so
Mhm.
it will be exhibited in culture, and it will come out even though you have a mixed relationship. These things still will exist there. There might be a language barrier. There might be different concepts of familial duty or responsibility. There might be, and hopefully not, but there might actually be bias, discrimination, and racism on one or both parts. This does happen, even if you care about each other and are in love. You still come from someplace. You still have influences from your society, from your concept of your identity and your race and ethnicity, all of it. And then there also can be religious differences. So interracial dating is a huge mix of these elements that can affect the outcome. Uh, so, what can influence your success in mixed race dating? One thing I'd say, and feel free to jump in any time here, Z,
Mhm.
um, is just how much common ground you have, regardless of race, right? If you are college students going to the same school, you're the same age, uh, you might have just enough that just alone might be enough to give you a starting point in a relationship, regardless of what your race is. If you have common ground in the what you're studying, or if you have common ground in where you work, what city you live in, like there, it could be anything. But it's only if race is really, really important to you that you might find less common ground if it's an influence and if you have some of those biases and discriminatory thinking. You also have to consider how much implicit bias you hold, right? Those unconscious held beliefs that you might have about a certain group of society. So you might not really know, but believe certain things about other races. And it doesn't have to be negative, it could be a positive thing, but it still might be a stereotype. And that still might influence how you treat this person or how you expect them to behave. And being aware of those biases will actually help you to overcome them, see them for what they are, and have a better chance when dating this person. You all should be kind of consider how supportive your circle of friends and family is. If they're very supportive, you're all good. If they aren't really too keen on the idea of you being with someone from that country or that place or that background, then you might have issues there. Your previous experiences in dating, if you've dated someone from that race before, you might be better set up to know kind of what comes with the package. Um, but that's not everyone from the same race. does things the same way, but there may be something in common. So at least you might have something to work with. Uh, your knowledge of their culture, their language, and background might really help. Um, I know that when I was living over in China and dating there, uh, people had preconceived notions of what Americans were like, what they did, what they were doing, and what they were after. So a lot of the women there expected me to be like sleeping with everyone I knew because
Hmm.
Americans just everything in the movies, Americans just sleep with everybody. So when I was not like that, they were very surprised. And then on the other side, like one of my first Chinese girlfriend, uh, she so they sort of and this is a generalization, but it happened a number of times. uh, they expect you to be jealous and show jealousy and almost a kind of controlling jealousy about their behavior, who they spend time with, whether or not they have male friends. If you don't show that, it
You
means
don't
like you don't
don't
care about them.
care. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So you
exactly
have to
right.
be jealous of the guys in their life, otherwise you don't care about them. And me, I just that's not my thing. I don't do jealousy. I don't do if you say you're gonna go hang out with your guy friend, I'll be like, cool. What do you want? You catch up with me later. And mm-mm. So issues.
That is that in a word, for domestically, it is called drama. Asians love their drama, and it provides talking point, but it's a bit of a reinforcement on the relationship. So in this particular sense, I think uh, I was and I have been multiple times in the situation that Op, Mr. Buzz this year, has been in. I am an Asian male, and most of my dating partners have been white females. So I can completely understand the situation that he's in. By the way, kudos for breaking the Asian male stereotype. By the way, we went over in a previous Sunday Focus segment, which you can check on YouTube. The negative connotations associated to dating certain groups of people. Asian male was up there as a negative group. So way to go to break that stereotype. I love it. Um, but there are a lot of things with regards to positive and negatives that he might not know about being an Asian male dating a white female, and these are personal experiences that I have gone through myself. And for one thing, first, being an Asian male, the positives, one of the biggest positives is that you're dating this girl. Coming from an Asian culture, and a family that is very involved with my life, there are stigmas and associations that are dealt with dating people in general. The fact that you're dating who you want to date is a big, big positive. You're not letting your family members or other people that are associated with you dictate you should go out with this girl, or this girl is good. She comes from a great family. You should ask her out. No, 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 no. That's my life. You're dating who you want to date. Absolutely fantastic. And this is one of those things in which this is a real, real good thing in your relationship. You also get to experience what it's like, not being Asian, because you're going to be intermixing and hopefully like meeting her family or something like that. But that in a way is sort of weird because being Asian, also you're also expected to meet the family a little earlier. So, like she might not be close to her family, so you might not exactly know what's going on in that particular situation. So it's like, oh, okay, it's like you will probably end up bringing her home and meeting your parents, assuming that you are in a situation where your parents are close, or your parents will want to have dinner with you one time a week or twice a week, whatever it is, and you'll end up introducing her to your family. And in a way, it's more her problem than yours because she will actually be forced to integrate with your foreign family, and she might not know what to do. In a way, it's funny. It's just like you're going to have to go through the hardship. She's going to have to go through the hardship of about that, and she's a good person if she's willing to sort of undertake that and learn. and it's absolutely great. um, there's a lot of that goes on in a relationship. Multiple positives that that can take it out. That you can learn about things. So like it's not necessarily either, uh, just fetishizing a particular race either. If you're an Asian male and you like dating white girls, fine, it's great. But guys will date Asian girls, will date African American girls, anybody, as long as guys find them attractive in some way. It's a lot of the times I don't think ethnicity actually comes into play. So it's just really funny. There are negatives in my particular instance that I think also that he needs to be ready for. Um, we do live in a society that isn't used in a way. Now they are sort of, but not really. Mixed race couples will be looked upon depending on where you are and where you're from. I remember sitting in a Waffle House with my white girlfriend, eating, just sitting in a booth together, sitting next to each other, being a couple, and just getting stared at by these people as we were eating our breakfast. And it just seemed weird. And they were just like wondering what the hell was going on between these two people. And that is also very odd. Another thing that was also a negative is I think this plays more into the Asian male thing. Um, I've had people when I'm not like in a social situation or in a mall or even going out where we're out together, and I've had guys just straight up hit on my girlfriend, uh, thinking that there's no way he's with him. He's probably just a friend, and they'll just go straight up and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" and start hitting on your girlfriend because there's this weird assumption that there's no way that this Asian dude could be with this white girl. That is weird. Um, the first time when it happens, it becomes funny later on because I just found it hilarious. Um, but it's one of those things that you can definitely take very very badly, and people get aggressive. People are like, "What what are you doing here? What's going on?" And it's like, "There's no way you're dating this guy." That is a real possibility. There's also this assumption that being an Asian male in this particular case, that there are certain absolute positives and negatives about who you are. One of my girlfriend's mothers immediately assumed I was very good at math. I am good at math. It just happens to be I am good at math. but but it was just one of those assumptions that was going on. Another thing that happened that my girlfriend at that particular time told me was intimacy assumptions from her girlfriend. She was asking if it was everything was okay, and she was like, "Yeah, it's fine." It's like, "Well, what the hell are you assuming?" I'm assuming that Asian guys, just being Asian guys. It's like, no, no, it's fine. It's like nothing really wrong. Very much so assumptions, and you just sort of have to be able to roll with it. And if you can take it with, you brush it off or laugh it off, it's a positive, but it is something that you will have to get used to. And these are just things, typical things that don't really come up if you're not going out of basically your race. And there's just some of the things that will happen. But I just think in a way they're learning curves and they're positives in the long run. There's my two
Yeah,
cents.
yeah. So, I mean, this stuff can exist in a same race relationship, but it's just like the spotlight is on different areas when you decide to date someone out of your race,
Hmm.
or at least from the perspective of other people looking at you. So I definitely understand where you're coming from there. Not exactly because I'm different race, but can
Well,
be.
you're the other way,
Um,
right? If I mean, like
well,
you know,
sort of.
in yeah,
You talking about my present relationship?
correct, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get to that. So. From my perspective here, I just threw a couple ideas down, but I mean, this is very superficial, but like part of the, one of the best benefits of dating someone outside your race is that you're exposed to so many things and good things, amazing things, things that can expand your world and your horizon. So for me, immediately coming to mind, food. Uh, there are so many great foods out there, and in America, it's very easy to go find food from different people's countries, but not necessarily the authentic food from their country. So you might be able to go enjoy the American version of what they think they serve in that country. But if you go to this person's house and their family and they cook it up, you're going to get the real deal, and you're going to realize you didn't know anything about that.
Hmm.
And food's where it's at. But you get exposed to language, which that comes culture. Um, you know, some of these things. For example, your social circle might expand. You might meet people that you never would have otherwise come in contact with, and you're constantly learning, constantly expanding, and it's really great if you have the right frame of mind. And the third positive, and this is for people who generally in long-term relationships and or married, you'll have beautiful babies. Yep, I said it.
Yeah.
uh, it's mixing things up causes some pretty cool combinations, and sometimes you get some really pretty ones. So Um, on the other side, though, there can be a lot of frustrations regarding things that would have never otherwise shown up on your radar. Um, the ones that come to my mind immediately are gift giving rules. So my wife is Chinese, Taiwanese uh, ethnicity, and American nationality, but a lot of that stuff came with her growing up. So the way you give gifts is just very different than in my family and my experience. The holidays are different, so we do holidays for both sides of the family. The duties to family are different. What's expected of us. So trying to make that work in a relationship, you don't really have to consider it too much. But once you are in a deep relationship or a committed relationship or you're married, these things they're pretty important. And going forward, you have to consider what you're going to pass on to your kids and what you're going to have, what your expectations of them will be, and it might be different for each parent. For those who might be trying to date interracially um, overseas, if you're living overseas, you might end up being a token or an accessory to them if you're in their country. I know that I got some attention over in Asia simply because I was American and had different color skin, different color eye, different eyes, different hair, and I did not like that. I did not like people liking me for something that I didn't necessarily think was special. And I wanted to be known, I wanted them to know me for me, not just get looked at as though they were driving down the street in a fancy sports car because they're dating a foreigner.
Hmm.
So that could be a negative. And then, back to the beautiful babies. Sometimes your kids don't look like you. You feel like you look at them and you're like, I can see my ears, but the rest doesn't quite look like me. So maybe that could be a negative, maybe not. Depends how ugly you are. No, I'm just being a dick. Um, I think it's good. It's a good thing. I think that, like anything else in the world, if you are open minded, you're going to have a better experience of the world. And what you'll find is the more things you try, the more appreciation you have for what you've had so far, and more appreciation you have for what else is out there. So, you know, date people for who they are and, learn something about yourself, learn something about them. There can be some really good stuff.
So absolutely, that's the best advice
Yeah.
of it all. It's like, don't let race uh, scare you into not dating somebody. Follow your heart. Sometimes it'll lead you into some place where you're not holding, they're not going to expect, and it might be the relationship that you're looking for. There's going to be issues associated with it, but surviving it together is one of those things that will actually bond a couple much better because you go through the adversities both. And remember, this is not just it's one-sided adversity. When you're in an interracial relationship, it'll be a double-sided adversity. Both people will experience it. Be it if it's one, even though comments or something will be directed at one, you are a couple, so you'll both be going through both of what's going on. So you know, be able to deal with it. So.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. We got started a little bit late, so do you want to just wrap it up here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. It's almost midnight here on the East Coast. So, yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for joining us here on Twitch line, here on Twitch and on YouTube. As always, we're just going to remind you of our socials again. You can email us comments, questions, concerns to our email address at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can also tweet us on Twitter at TwitchLine. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're watching us on Twitch, make sure you hit that follow button, and make sure that you tune in. We are live every Wednesday, usually around the 10 o'clock hour. We will sometimes start later, 10:30. So make sure if you do hit that follow button, you'll know when we go live on YouTube. Just search Twitchline Relationship Help and Advice. You'll find our channel. You'll see an archive of all of our older shows, our Sunday Focus segments, even our Freeform Thursdays are all recorded there on YouTube. And if you want to take us on the go, you can listen to us on SoundCloud. Just search Twitchline Relationship Advice and you will find us, and you can listen to us on SoundCloud on your phone, tablet, or any mobile device. Acorn, it's been interesting. Any final thoughts?
Oh, let's see. Uh, yeah, this is not necessarily related to romantic dating, but what I just said, all that stuff about interracial dating, you can have friends from other countries too, and they will take you to good restaurants and they will expand your food horizons. I can tell you personally from the man that I'm sitting here spending Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday nights with,
Uh huh.
I've had some amazing food that I never in my life would have had if he and I weren't good friends.
That is correct.
So it doesn't have to be, you know, the love of your life. It can be the buddy of your life.
Mm.
Um, and before we go, I just want to let you know that earlier today I was going through just a ton of pictures that came out of my dad's attic
Hmm.
because they're clearing all that stuff out anyways. And they gave me the job of picking through it and deciding what we're going to save and what we're going to toss. And I came across a number of photos from our teen years. And oh, fun, oh Lord!
Oh, really?
So
I
I'm
don't
going to
even
share
remember
them with you.
taking. I don't even
Oh,
remember taking photos a lot in our
yeah,
junior
well,
or
they
high
weren't
senior
okay.
year.
There weren't a lot of them, but there are some good ones. So
Oh, really?
be
I'm
ready.
I'm scared.
Yeah, you should be. It's epic. Um,
And we'll end
well,
it on that because
yeah.
I think these photos will then come out here on a future Freeform
Tell you.
Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what we'll do if this channel takes off and we get some people showing up regular, maybe what we'll do is we'll offer it as a bonus for
a pre
reaching
as a
10,
premium.
10 subs, something like that.
Yes. So maybe if you are a future subscriber, you'll get access to my high school photos, which would be crazy.
You want them, trust.
Yeah. But we're going to end it on that funny, funny note. So thank you so much for joining us here on Twitch and on YouTube. And hopefully you'll tune in again here on Wednesdays. Catch us again tomorrow. We're actually going to be skipping Freeform Thursday, and we'll actually be going to a focus segment, which we were supposed to do on Sunday, but Xfinity, my internet provider, sucked that day. So we will be actually doing a Freeform Thursday substitution, as our Sunday focus segment will be on Thursday tomorrow. But for Acorn, I'm Hodo. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.